My next guest is a writer who has dedicated her life and talent to encouraging and enlightening the women and youth of her inner city community, particularly those who are troubled, depressed, or simply needing the help of human kindness. And with all that, she's written a play and produced it too, with music and dance called Shout, that opened last week at the Barnsdall Gallery Theater. The play was adapted from her novel of the same name and a couple of other novels as well, and she joins us at the Roundtable to talk about her extraordinary story. Her name, Mimi Kelly. Mimi, welcome.
Thank you.
Now, take us back to the beginning. You had to be motivated to start writing.
Yes.
What was the motivation and why did you start writing?
I started writing in 1993, and it followed a very stressful year in 92. There were the riots in 92, the city burned down. I had 3 sons. They were all very young. I was raising them. And towards the end of 92, I learned that my oldest son had severe learning disabilities. And it was a very, very shocking moment. I was told, he wouldn't be able to do this, he wouldn't be able to do that. And the educators had a very dismal outlook for him. So that, coupled with the stressful social year in Los Angeles, sent me to a place where I just needed to sit still and get some peace and quiet. And so I ended up staying in London for a year after that, the boys and I. And it was a period where I was just with my sons and very quiet, and the rain in London gave me a chance to slow down, and I realized I had these stories in me. And so I began to write. And so I say that my oldest son, Rennie, is my angel, because had it not been for that painful moment, I would have never probably stood still long enough to realize that that was what I was supposed to do.
So you started writing.
I started writing.
Was it in London when you started?
I started writing in London, and I say that all 3 books came to me at once, and I knew the beginning. I knew the end at the beginning. I knew, but you can't tell people that because they think you're a little strange. So you can't say, okay, I got these 3 books in me, they're going to be a play, and I got all of that information just last night. So they think you're a little strange. So I had to, take my time. And so I began to write. I wrote the first book, On Edge, while I was in London.
On Edge, while you're talking, I'm just going to, On Edge is your first book.
Was the first book, yes.
Right. Are we able to get this, Kevin? So On Edge.
On Edge was the first, and it is the story of Los Angeles professionals going through the stress and strain of trying to discover what they're really supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it, and balancing raising families. So I was able to pour all of that I had been feeling on the inside on the pages of On Edge. And so it's a very dramatic filled book.
and we can go online or go in a bookstore and buy this book.
Yes.
Right. Now, this was your first book.
That was the first.
Now let's back up for 1 second, because the play was based on all 3 books.
The play is based on all 3 books, and I'm telling you, I knew in the beginning, but I can't tell somebody that, because here we are 14 years later. But the play is called Shout.
Right.
The second book is called Just Gotta Shout.
Gotta Shout, and this is the Just Gotta Shout.
Yes.
Right.
And that is
second book.
And the third book is Shout Out Above Life's Storms, I Have Wings to Fly. Finally.
Wings to Fly. Wings to Fly, and this is your last book?
Yes.
Now, these 3 books make up Shout. Tell us a little bit about the play. We'll get the books.
Oh, God. Shout has just been a blessing to all of us. We've just shouted through it. Oh, it's incredible. But it is basically it is a moving, rhythmic piece. It is a 1-act piece. We don't stop. The set is very minimal, because the most important thing is that you understand that these are people who are trying to overcome challenges and trying to discover the best way to be in life. And so with that, you don't need a lot of props, you don't need a lot of furniture and all of that. What you do need, because I love it, and that is music and dance. And so we have phenomenal, just phenomenal musicians, phenomenal dancers. And so
It's a big play.
it's a gigantic play.
How many people? My
I
goodness.
stopped counting. It's about 12 of us.
My goodness, with music.
It's 12. It's 12 with the dancers, the actors, the musicians, all of that. Maybe a few more, but 12. And it's been a labor of love, I think, for everyone. Matter of fact, one of the actresses came up to me and said, you know, we would do this if we didn't get a dime. Wow. I think it's a transforming piece. So it's about these 4 women who are basically being hit with all sorts of obstacles and hurdles, and they're moving through 3 days of their life. And as they move, the music moves with them, and the dancers present them in dance. And so it's wonderful.
Okay, so now congratulations, because whenever you can put on a production on stage, especially with these many people, or even with 2 people, it's hard. It's very difficult to put on a production. Now, what's going to happen now? I know you did the play at Barnsdall, and what's now going to happen to the play?
It is a moving piece theoretically and also physically, and that's the vision that I had, is that we would be offering it to various organizations and communities, and so we are moving to West Angeles Church on October 14th.
October 14th, West Angeles.
West Angeles. We will be there.
Edifice or the small?
We will be in the theater, I believe. Yes. I'm hopeful that we will also go to West Angeles, Faithful Central. I've opened communications with them about us moving and shouting at Faithful Central. 2 groups that we are honoring, that we honored at the performance at the Barnsdall, was the Special Needs Network, which is a community-based nonprofit for young adults, for individuals with disabilities, not just young adults. And also the Genesee Center, which is a domestic violence intervention program. And so we are hoping to also present it to them in another setting where their clients would be our special guests, and they would sort of co-produce it with us. I have 5 cities in my heart that I have to have it go to. Okay. So I plan to do that, and it's going to be a busy 3 months.
Well, that's good. Well, good luck.
I plan to do all of this by the end of the year.
Well, no, it's doable. It's doable. Yes. Now, did you produce, direct? How are you?
I produced, and God brought everybody else.
Oh, okay.
I have a phenomenal director. Oh my God, she's just phenomenal. Her name is Kathy Irvin. She's a professor of theater at Cal State San Bernardino. Oh, wow. From a native of Detroit, Michigan, and just saw my vision, and was able to pick it up and just run with it. And so I've just been so blessed with her.
Well, that's fantastic. Now, the play, we have something in common that I'd like to kind of touch on. Yes. Because my grandson and your son went to school together.
Yes, at Harvard Westlake.
They played ball together at Harvard Westlake. And Michael is now at NYU, and your son's at Michigan.
Yes, yes.
Which is a very interesting school these days, because of what happened in that Appalachia State game. But we won't go into that.
Please don't.
We won't go into that. What's your next? If we can move ahead in where your head is, where your thinking is there another book in the works?
No, and there's not another book in the works, but there's another play. I hate to tell the director, but this is only part 1 of Shout. There's part 2.
Oh, there is a part 2?
See, I let it out just slowly. I don't want to tell people everything.
Is it still based on these 3 books, though?
Yes. There's part 2 of the Shout, which would be the ending. So they don't know that yet.
And you're not going to tell them.
I'm not going to tell them until we fully exhausted everything we need to do with shout.
But it's in your head. It's all in your head.
It's already written.
Oh, okay.
In my head. I haven't sat down and put it on paper, but I pretty much know exactly what would happen in Shout Team.
Now, you're a novelist. You're a writer. Did you study to write?
No, I did not. Well, you know how I studied? I worked with the most high-powered attorneys in the city. I graduated from UCLA, and I worked as a litigation administrative assistant. And so I worked with some of the best legal minds that the city has to offer, and I was their right-hand girl. And in that process, they taught me how to write. I mean, I had to write, you know, a memo or a brief that was flawless.
Right.
But when I was in London and had begun to write, I called Batham, and I told them I was in Stoke Poges. That's the place I was, and I told them I'm in Stoke Poges, and I can't stop writing. And so they, I don't know why, but they piped me into the chief editor. And so she stayed on the phone with me for an hour, and she wanted to know what I was writing and why. And so she held my hand through the process. I would send her, you know, I told her, so how do I know when I'm at the end of the chapter? And she said, oh, you'll just stop. It'll be just like a breath you'll take. And so I would send her those breaths, those stops every week, and she would make comments and send it back. And so I was very thankful for that support. So I had one of the top editors. They ultimately made a decision not to publish it. It was a literary fiction. That's what it was. And I was a new author. Right. And I think they didn't know where to put me. And they were giving me suggestions of things that I could take out that would make it more commercial, and I was uncomfortable with that. And so I decided to take this journey instead.
So now you just want to write plays.
I don't want to, I just have the ending of Shout.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
Now tell me something, your interest in dealing with helping others.
Yes.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because aside from the fact that you're probably a brilliant writer, and I want to see the play when you do it again, how are you able to share this with others and help others? Is there an avenue that you're using, or is it just the books?
I have a nonprofit. I started a nonprofit while I was teaching. When I came back from London, I began to teach elementary school in Watts. And while I was there, several of the parents tugged at my heart because of the situation that they were in and the difficulty that they were having raising their kids. And so I started this organization called Sisters Supporting Sisters, which is a 501c3. And my principal got behind me, and the teachers got behind me. And when I initially started it, we would do clothes drives and book drives. We would have seminars, motivational people come in and speak to the women. But it has evolved, and so because of my own personal issue with young adults with special needs and my son being a part of that population, we are expanding our focus to include that group.
Oh, wonderful.
But SHOUT is an acronym for success, have hope, overcome obstacles, utilize God's power, and take charge.
That's your shout.
That's my shout.
That's the acronym for, now it is an acronym.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Now, talk a little bit about this whole shout theme and theory.
I think that goes back to my Southern roots. It goes back to, I was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And my grandmother was a very humble lady who made it through the 4th grade, and she went to a church with wooden floors and pews where there were no cushions, and the choir would just hum, and the congregation would join them. And so I grew up with these images of very humble but very strong women who would shout. And I realized when I was in London that that shout really represented pulling your strength up from the depths of, you know, a painful situation or depression or any of those things. And so when they were shouting on Sunday, it could have been because on Saturday, you know, the whole family was a mess, or there was a huge, you know,
Somebody,
brawl
yeah, right.
in the neighborhood, or, you know, I mean, so the shouts represented their physical, you know, exercise of saying, I will overcome.
Right.
And so the shout is about overcoming circumstances and negativity in life, and enjoying the ride and having a good time at the end of it all.
Right. I have an interesting short little shout story that I'll tell you and I'll tell our audience about the shout. I was a kid in church.
Yes.
We'd be in church all day on Sunday. It was really crazy. I mean, all day long in church. So, and the choir would be singing and they would be making an all thing. And the women, I never saw a man shout, but the women, and this lady was sitting next to me, and she hit me in the head with her pocketbook. And it hurt me so much. I started crying, and I fell on the floor, and she didn't even know she had hit me. She was still shouting, and I was on the floor with a serious headache, and I think she cut me at one point with this big pocketbook she hit me with. But anyway, that's my shout.
Everybody has some shout stories.
Everybody has a shout story.
Yes.
So now talk about your mother. Now you started this company with your mother.
Yes, I started the company.
Talk about your mom, who's now gone.
Can I talk about my mom without boohooing? I don't know.
Well, no, don't then.
So I won't
Don't.
But she was such a great lady and such a positive force in my life. My mother was an educator, PhD educator, and had an experience in Southern California. She was superintendent of schools in Compton for a while in Southern California. But yes, we started, she was on the board of directors for Sisters Supporting Sisters, and did a lot of you know, grant searching and administrative stuff. And before she passed, the last 2 years before she passed, we shouted together at a lot of LA Unified schools, high schools. And
She was a great inspiration for you.
she was a great inspiration, and she was the T in the shout. She was the testimony.
Okay.
She was the T in the shout.
Right. So now give me the shout again. The S. Give me.
The S is success. Or stand up if you're just so tired that you don't think you can be a success. You just stand up in the midst of it all. The H is have hope. The O is overcome obstacles, because you're going to get to the U, which is utilize God's power to take charge, the T of your life.
Right.
That's the shout. That's the shout.
Before you leave the studio, the Playhouse, I'd like for you to sign these books for me. But I also want to thank you for being such an inspiration yourself, and being such, and look, that's a lot of work to put into writing and then putting it on stage.
Yes.
And it's a lot of work, and I know your heart's in all of it.
Yes.
And I wanted to sit and talk with you to get the feeling of your feeling, you know, and it's there. It really is there.
Here.
Thank you so much for coming. And I want you to come back, because once you do that show again, if it's somewhere around here,
Yes.
I want to talk to you, because I'm going to see that production.
Yes.
Then I'm going to come back and ask you to come back, and then I'm going to talk to you. I'm not going to critique it. I'm not going to, that must have been Charles. But I want to see it, and then I'll have you back to talk about it. Thanks, Mimi.
Thank you. Can I say one last?
Sure you can.
I'm here because of Charles Allen Anderson, my co-producer, who has been phenomenal. And I think you two have a history and friendship also.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a small world.
It is a small
And so I
world.
want to take this opportunity to thank Charles for making this happen.
He's a great man. He's done some fantastic things. We've been friends for many, many years, and we have a lot of friends and things in common. And I'm happy that you hooked up with him, because he knows what he's doing.
Big guy.
Yeah,
He's a big guy.
Thanks, Mimi.
Okay, thank you.